All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Gatekeepers, the podcast, a podcast designed to feed the mind and the spirit, religion, relation, economy, government, and everything in between. There's not a topic we won't touch, and our hope, excuse me, as always, is to bring it back to the truth of God's word. And my guest today is a very special guest. I know him as Mr. Q, but it's Albert Quintana. I don't know your middle name.
Cruz.
Albert Cruz.
Not related to Ted.
And Mr. Cruz is... Why did I just call you Mr. Cruz?
Because you're thinking about Ted Cruz.
You done messed me all up. And what a way to kick off a Gatekeepers episode. Listen, Mr. Q is an awesome brother. I consider him a mentor to me. But he was in education for 30
years is good enough.
30 years.
I'm still doing some teaching here on the side.
And he's not going anywhere. And he actually taught my mom, my dad, my uncles, probably my aunties, because he was a teacher in Commerce City. And is that it?
That's pretty much it. You
Okay.
know. Also, I grew up in Commerce City, so
Grew up in Commerce City, mean streets of Commerce City.
77th place at you would buy UNH your Kitty's Chili Factory.
And he has contributed to his community, to society. He's a published author. 2 books that I know of. The green chili book. What is that one called?
No More Green Chili.
No More Green Chili. And it makes me hungry every time I think about it. And the other one was, you got to help me with
The
that.
Crochet Lady.
The Crochet Lady.
And initially, I wrote A Teacher Grows Up in Commerce City.
Okay.
And everybody says that's kind of a corny title, but at that time in my life, I had to share that because I always look at the modeling thing.
Yeah.
Because other kids could do the same thing.
Okay. Either way, you're an all-around bad man, a bad mamma jamma, in a good way.
Yes.
And I remember the first time our paths crossed. My mom was actually going to the Catholic Church there off 72nd. Our mother Guadalupe.
Our Lady Mother of the Church.
Our Lady Mother of the Church.
Nuestra.
My uncle went there. My grandma went there for years, And we were actually picking up a care package, some bread.
Oh, yeah.
And that was, do you remember that day?
Yeah, I was doing some volunteer work at the food bank right
Yes.
there at Our Lady Mother Church, Nuestra Iglesia de la Madre.
Yes. And we showed up, and you were there. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first time I remember our paths crossing. And my mom introduced you. Oh, this is my old teacher, Mr. Q. And that was the first time I remember meeting the infamous, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Q.
Well, initially what happened there is Mary Jo Hunt,
Yep.
his
Shout out
mother,
to my mom.
beautiful lady, she comes up and she introduces me to her son, and I see this kid, and he's about 6 foot tall.
Yep.
A lot slimmer then.
I gained a few
And
pounds.
I was very, very impressed with his approach.
Yeah.
And she said, well, Mr. Q, he's going to be a preacher. And I looked at him and I said, wow. I said, if anybody's can be a preacher in the city of Commerce City, this guy will do it. Because I was really impressed with his delivery and his presence.
Amen.
And I never really got to tell you that.
Yeah.
But
I'm blushing.
I was kind of fortunate because at that time, I guess were in need of a little help in terms of food. So I was able to. And downstairs in the basement, I was in front. I was the front man. And down in the basement, my wife, Louise, was going ahead and she's putting all the items together to be given to the Hunt family.
Right.
So that was my impression. And later on, because I like to eat, addicted like most people on food.
Yeah.
I saw him over at the butcher block. And he says, oh, Mr. Q, look who's here. Mr. Q's here.
A few years later,
He
right?
was so excited. And he goes, can I take a picture with you? And I go, oh, my God. And I was a little hesitant.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, yeah, why not? So he took a picture of me. And And then I guess several years later, I found out that he's doing a little bit of preaching on the street and conversing with the people there, which I think is really missing in today's society.
Right.
We don't see enough of the deacon or the preacher or the priest out there. Not even to visit a wrestling match, a high school wrestling match, or a basketball game. And a lot of times, and this is not only in the Catholic Church, this is also in all churches, you don't see them around.
Right.
They think that time, now this is my own impression, that time that they are there for an hour and a half for Wednesday and on Sunday is enough, but it isn't. Because kids need to be seeing these people, these influential people in the community.
Right.
And that's one of my critiques, because if you go back and you watch, you read some of those books about the deacon in New York City, that was something about the blade, the Bible and the blade. I can't remember the title of that book, but
I'm not familiar with it.
he was out there.
Yeah.
He was out in the community, and sometimes he was breaking up those fights where guys were pulling out knives and guns.
Yeah.
And you don't see that anymore.
Right.
And what is it? The fear? Or is it a complacency?
Yeah.
Or just being comfortable?
Right.
So that's one of my criticisms in terms of clergy or the laity that have taken that position of going out and preaching the word.
Right.
Evangelizing.
Yeah, somewhere along the lines, it became about building buildings, filling buildings, gaining audience, almost entertaining the crowd, the believer, as opposed to reaching the lost, evangelizing, preaching, ministering. So I've seen that in my short 15 years in Christianity. The focus isn't necessarily on reaching the community. The focus is filling our building. And I think that's wrong. And I think that's not the model that Jesus set, for sure. Because if you read about his 3 years of ministry, he was in the highways and byways. I think there's even a verse in Matthew where he says, foxes have a place to sleep, but I'm sleeping outside. And somewhere along the way, I think we lost sight of that. And whether you can point that to a specific thing, I don't know. Complacency, maybe the comfortableness or the riches of America. I don't know. And we'd have to, do an in-depth study, but it's lacking for sure.
I think what happens a lot of times, too, in our society, because of the way social media is out there and everybody has a camera,
Right.
If a priest or a preacher or minister does something out of line, even if it's just a little bit, they're there taking the pictures, and there's that fear that I'm over here preaching on Sunday, and now I'm going to be judged on the way I'm really living my life out there. I'm not really going out to harvest the people.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the answer is. I know the answer is I know the answer is Jesus.
Yeah.
I know that for sure. Jesus has always been by my side. I can remember one time when my son and I were coming back from a wrestling tournament, and we were in a van, and we got a flat tire. We're up there off Wadsworth, and I can't think it was I-70. So we take the turn, and I get a flat tire, and it was pitch dark on the side of the road. And my son's like about 16. And I go, okay, Javier, we're going to have to change this tire. And I could barely feel the nuts and bolts on the tires. So all of a sudden, a guy comes from behind with his car, puts his lights on us, and he looks at us and says, he looked like he was an Arab or a Muslim, like looking good guy, and he says, in the name of Jesus, we're going to fix this flat tire.
Wow.
And I looked at Javier, and I says, oh, because I was praying right away.
Yeah.
And sure enough, man, he put the lights on the tire, and I didn't even lift a finger. He got down there, and he undid it and put it back. And I just say, thank you, Lord. And I told the guy, thank you.
A true servant.
That was like prayers. Those are little miracles.
Yeah, yeah. It reminds me of a verse in Hebrews where Paul writes, always be graceful in your speech and in your mannerisms because you never know when you're entertaining an angel. Who knows if that, that very dude was from above. I mean, but no, I listen, before we get heavy into faith, I want to talk about your career, man. I have such a great respect, a new respect now that I have kids from 8 years old to 14 years old. Wow. I got to tell you, Mr. Q, I have a newfound respect for educators, for teachers. Mm-hmm. I mean, because I get a break when they go to school, and I'm like, whew, okay, they're in school. I get it. Mm-hmm. But this is actually your career. I mean, how the heck did you manage 30 years educating us knuckleheads? And I'm sure your faith played a huge role in that.
Okay, yeah, that's a good question, a very good question. I was telling my son the same thing. He's a English teacher at Eagle Crest High School, and he's kind of fallen away, but he's kind of like doing his own relativism type thing.
Okay.
So I told him, Javier, in terms of your wrestling team and in your classroom, you always look at it like this. This is your ministry.
Bam. Bam.
These kids, no matter what they do,
yeah,
they take first place in a tournament, take state, or they become the best rider in class or whatever. The most beautiful thing is they'll always remember you were the one that influenced them,
right? Because
you really believed in them. Yeah. And why you believed in them is because that was part of your ministry.
Yes. Amen.
Because you loved them.
Yeah. So you treated it like a ministry. You looked at
it
not as if this was a career or this was your job, but these were souls, these were lives that you were kind of in charge of. Okay. And I can definitely see how that would impact, and that ties into your faith, right?
Exactly.
So as a believer, you knew that your mission was greater than just educating the mind, but
I have the strongest faith in the Lord. I grew up in a alcoholic family, and my prayers were always deep when I'd get in the pew at church, and I had fallen away from the church, and my cousin told me, Albert, I want you to join the Crucial movement. It's a part of church. It's called a short course in Christianity.
Okay.
So I could always remember those days when I had it bad at home and going to church and praying and crying and whatever the case.
Yeah.
And the first day I went to confession. And when I was in the pew, I said, bless me, Father, and boom, profusely crying.
Wow.
Tears were just enormous. They were just falling and falling.
Yeah.
And then after that, I was cleansed.
Yeah.
And I had another experience where we went to a charismatic prayer group, and they would pray. They get in groups and pray over somebody. And some people were speaking in tongues, and they had the healing of this and the healing of that.
Wow. Spirit-filled, yeah.
And we were all calling on the Lord. And I know a lot of people don't believe me, but I felt when we were locked in hand to hand, I felt the power of God coming through like a light.
Yeah.
And it was like a light. It was like a beam, a lightning beam, or a lightning.
A bolt or what?
Bolt. There you go.
Just
sometimes without words here. Yeah. At 66 years old.
Boom.
And it was like lit up, and I just like fell back.
Yeah.
I fell back, and after that, you're out there, Lord. I know it now.
You knew the power of it.
I knew there, and there's no doubt.
Yeah.
And and I fall away. I fall away from that faith sometimes, and
that's every
God will
believer.
never forget me, or His faith in me is enormous.
Right.
Because all those days that I worked through being a teacher, it wasn't easy.
Right.
I had a lot of hardships.
Yeah.
There were some teachers principals that really didn't like my style when I worked with kids.
Yeah.
But guess what? Kids behaved for me.
Right.
So.
And that's every believer. I think Paul writes in Romans, "For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God." Right. But we pick ourselves up, man, and that's what you've done. So, okay, so definitely treating your classroom, treating your students as a ministry helped you. What kind of adversities did you face as an educator that made you question your calling at times, if any time? But I'm sure you have, because we all question our calling at times. So what adversities did you face in educating? And what kind of landmines can people out there avoid, like Javier, like your son?
I kind of look at it differently than that, because a lot of people would always say, and I know my friend Rick, he's here listening.
Brother Rick.
I know that he can really relate to what I'm saying here. Is I never had anything.
Yeah. You just had joy.
Everybody says, "Oh, teaching. How are you going to make any money from teaching?"
Yeah.
Well, I tell you one thing: when I have a pretty darn good retirement,
Amen.
and but that's what it gave me.
Yeah.
It gave me life in terms of that part.
Okay.
But it was from Christ, because He knew that I could do a great job in what I was doing. But
so would you say you're an exception and not the rule? Because the testimonials I hear are quite
they're
opposite.
miracles.
Yeah.
They're little miracles.
Yeah.
You know, who would think that Rick Sanchez, Albert Quintana, Bobby Espinoza, Dave Rolla, Vic Rolla, who were all, Latinos or Hispanics, whatever you wanted to call us, would have made it at that time.
Amen.
And we did.
Yeah.
When I retired back in 2003, I told all my classes, who's going to take my place?
Ooh.
I says, I'm going to be gone.
Yep.
And not one person came through except for several. Just a couple. Actually, a couple kids came through.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they had as much fervor
Yeah.
and belief. Maybe they went into their own little fields, their own little occupations and stuff like that. But I always instilled that into my own kids, Melody and Javier.
Right.
And
I guess maybe I have a tainted image of what being a teacher is like. Maybe that's due to Hollywood or due to this picture that's painted by society. But you think of teacher, you think of someone ready to pull their hair out, ready to go crazy.
Oh, that's happened too.
And that's why I ask, are you the exception or are you the rule?
Well,
there
were some obstacles. I can remember one class where I almost quit, walked out. Had like 48 kids in one class. Yeah. And these were all the kids that no one wanted.
Right.
And I don't know how I made it. I know there was a lot of prayer every day before I went in. And if one of the rebel rousers weren't there that day, man, it was a good day. Yeah. But that's the way schools were working in those days. Yeah. If you were a good teacher with rough kids, the reputation, that's where their kids went. Right. Because nobody wanted them. There's a lot of unwanted kids out there. Yes. And again, my friend Rick here, he was a dean of students at Adams City, and I know he ran into a lot of that stuff, and I know he really appreciated the good teacher because they would never send any kids to him. Yeah. But he knew who the bad teachers were. Right. Well, we're going to have Rick on the podcast later, so. Okay. Like later on, not today, but we're going to bring him back because Listen, I believe giving people a platform, sharing their life, sharing their testimony, it benefits us as a society because we're able to look into the life of somebody else and learn something, So I'm all for bringing people on to share their story. But so what kind of things, back to your career as an educator, or advices do you have for future educators to avoid wearing out or avoid, the trials that teachers face? Are there tools? I have to say they have to have a good spiritual base. Yeah, for sure. For sure. First and foremost. Yep. They have to be able to have a group of friends that were at school that they could share with and collaborate lessons and ideas. Yeah. That's essential. Right. And a lot of times teachers don't want to do that kind of stuff. They're just so much into their own little thing.
Yeah.
In their own little rooms. So
Right.
I don't know. That's a hard question.
I know. I'm sorry.
That's
That's what I do, baby. I bring the heat. Okay, so
66-year-old, bro.
so check this out. And I don't know if this is going to be another curveball question, but share some of the things that you learned from your students. There has to be a list of things that you learned from these kids. I know for me, like, my sons teach me grace every day, or they teach me the concept of unconditional love, so.
Well, excuse me. I was on Facebook with one student of mine from the past, and
Yeah.
she sent me a post, and she told me that, Mr. Q, you're the only teacher that really cared about me at Kearney Middle School. You always were there when kids were harassing me. You always stepped in, and you always talked to the kids that were harassing me to straighten up and to show a little bit of respect for one another.
Right.
So that made me feel really good. So, little things like that.
Okay.
I learned that from her, but that's just my nature.
Yeah.
I love to have fun. I hate disrespect,
Yeah.
and I think that was very essential in my classroom,
Okay.
because my classroom was my church.
Right. Well, I would say, just knowing you for the last decade or so, that you've enriched my life for sure, and I can only imagine as one of your students that they would only be able to say the same. So, so let's talk about you as an author.
Oh yeah, we forgot about that.
Where did this? I'm not gonna. Hey, we'll lead this thing back, baby. Where did that all stem from? I mean, so you're educating and your life is good. You got a family, you're getting married, having kids.
Oh, well, when I was a junior at UNC, the
Yeah.
University of Northern Colorado, I was in English class. I had gotten out of the classroom, and I was walking, and I remember everybody talking about stuff that they wanted to do literally.
Right.
So I said, one of these days I want to write a book. And so about another 100 steps down the road, I said, how could I write a book? I haven't even lived yet. I have nothing to share. But I did have a lot to share.
Right.
That was the crazy thing about the thing. So we were in our last years of my retirement. And we started doing sustained silent reading with the kids, and every teacher had to read a book with the kids, but everybody had a different book, and everybody had to read it for 25 minutes. So we were given a bunch of books, and I looked around, and I saw a book by Victor Villaseñor, Reign of Gold. And I picked that baby out, and I could not stop. I could not put it down.
Wow.
It was such an awesome book, and it was so relative to my life,
Right.
to our people, to everyone.
Yeah.
So I got hooked on that. Then I said, well, if he could do it. So then I was on the internet, and I saw something called self-publishing books, and it was Author House.
Okay.
So they're saying, well, you could write a book. It'll cost you to publish it. It'll cost you so much money. So I start writing.
Yeah.
I start writing about my life. And there was a librarian there. I can't remember her name, at Adams City, and she says, Albert, I'll edit your book.
Oh, dang.
So I start
Yeah.
sending her a chapter at a time. And
Yeah.
so that was A Teacher Grows Up in Commerce City.
Okay.
And that story was about all the great teachers I had.
Yeah.
Some people hated them, but
Yeah.
I really liked them. I looked up to them because they were, in my opinion, they were like my parents away from parents.
Yeah.
And I really liked Mr. Villani because he asked me to be his teacher's aide.
Yeah.
And he had me do some of the demonstrations.
Okay.
Because we had I was in ninth grade, and these students were like eighth and seventh graders, and I did all the all the tests, safety tests.
Yeah.
I would administer them.
Okay.
What kind of tool is this? What kind of tool is that? And do you remember that test, Rick? And so I was, I was on top of the world. I was like the other teacher.
Right, right.
So he always was very encouraging to me. And so I wrote stories about that. Of course, girls I liked. I had a couple stories about all the girls that I had a crush on.
Yeah.
Situations of bullying and
Yeah.
overcoming, because I was always the littlest guy in the classroom.
Right.
And somebody would always try to challenge me or push me around, so I had to become Commerce City on him.
Yes.
So
you don't know where I'm from, boy. From the city. Hey,
talking
man.
stuff or what? What are you looking at?
Gotta go Commerce City on him.
So I started doing that, and then my dad had passed away, and my mom was there, and I looked at her and I said, golly, man, what's mom going to do?
Yeah.
What's mom going to do now? So I started writing about her history, her family, her mom and dad, how they went through life as migrant farm workers.
Wow.
So then my mother-in-law, she becomes very ill.
Yeah.
She's on the deathbed. Well, she's not on the deathbed, but she's like the years prior to.
Right.
And she goes, Albert, I want you to write my book too.
Oh, wow.
And she had gone deaf.
Yeah.
So I interviewed her with a whiteboard and eraser pen.
Okay. Wow.
And I'd ask her a question, I'd write it down, and she'd answer it.
Yeah. Wow. And that was your third one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And next is my book. He's going to write the Joe Hunt story.
Starring Joe Hunt.
You're not done yet, brother. You got work to do.
Rick Sanchez and the group at...
He's our editor.
At the Butcher Block. Talked about
the
that.
Butcher Block.
Yeah, we meet there every once time when I come back from Oklahoma.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. So we're at our half-hour mark. So we're gonna take a quick break so I can switch out SD cards, and when we come back, we're gonna talk about what's next, and then we're gonna give you an opportunity to reflect, I guess.
Okay.
Give your thoughts, your final thoughts. All right. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Okay, guys. Welcome back. Thanks for your patience. And we're gonna get ready to wrap things up here. But first of all, thank you, brother, for coming down. I know you live in Oklahoma now.
I'm an Okie.
Okie dokie. So it's always a pleasure to have you back in your hometown, Colorado. But number two, thank you for your years of service, man, to the community, to the people, and not just as an educator, but as a volunteer member at your church. Someone, like I said, that's where we met. You were volunteering in the bread, the food pantry, and for all your work as an author, writing people's stories. So
playing music too.
Playing music. I mean,
I was a music minister.
You had me on your show too. You had your own show for a second there.
Yeah, for about 8 months.
All right, and then, that's when we reconnected, kind of. So I want to give you the opportunity to kind of wrap this up, and really your outro, your message to humanity, your message. If somebody was watching this 100 years from now, what kind of wisdom would you leave them?
Well, it's really hard because
I know.
I always look at I'm a survivor.
Yes.
And I think a lot of our people, my father, my mother, my ancestors, all of them were survivors. They survived in their communities. They lived on the ranch and they raised cattle, or like my mom's side, they never really even had a home.
Right.
Because they were migrant farm workers. They would just go ahead and share crop, and they would go from house to house, and the farmer would tell them, okay, you guys do this field, that field, and the other field. But I am the offspring of that survival.
Yeah.
And now I really feel that now that I'm out there, I try to project that to other people to never give up,
Yes.
to fight hard,
Yep.
get your education. And I remember one time a grandfather was telling me, "Oh, I'm not. If my grandson doesn't want to go to college, he doesn't have to."
Yeah.
And I says, "Well, you know what? It all becomes a part of one thing: support from the family.
Yeah.
If you don't have support from the family, you have nothing.
Right.
Or is it maybe because you don't want to support the kid a little bit? Maybe he might need some help with his tuition,
Right.
or or books, or whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
But people out there, your kids need to get educated.
Yes. Yes.
Instead of working for the man all their life."
Right.
And somebody might say, "Well, you were working for the man anyway." We owe our life in this. We owe our lives to the bank.
Right.
So that's more of a defeatist attitude, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
We all have to pay bills and we all have to survive.
Yeah.
So you need to get mentors too. You got to surround yourself with good people.
Right.
That's essential. And I think that's my message to the kids of today, to society, is that surround yourself with good people. Evangelize your environment. Be more effective in your environment than your environment affects you.
Yeah.
You have to be the leader within that situation, within that circle.
Right.
And pray. Pray. I can remember Columbine happened. I can't remember the year. But Columbine, we had a big old situation at Adams City High School. And I raised my hand after the meeting because everybody was scared. We had lockdowns and everything. And I said, "Okay, I don't know how many people out here who believe in prayers, but after this meeting, you guys can come to my room and we can pray."
Wow.
I had 30 teachers that went to my room out of about 100 teachers.
Wow.
And we kept the prayer going for about a good year.
Really?
But we prayed until I retired in 2003.
Wow.
But we did have at least 5 people there every Monday morning.
Every session praying.
Mm-hmm. So prayer, that relationship, don't lose that relationship.
Yeah.
It's so important.
Yeah. And just for our listeners, where can we find your material? Where can we find your books? Where can we find your page? Following?
Okay. Yes.
Get some plugs.
Everybody go out and get a pen and pencil. Okay? Pen and pencil.
Mm-hmm.
And write this down. QuintanaReads.com.
Spell that.
Quintana, QuinTana, Reads, READS.com.
Okay. And that's where you're...
And my books can be ordered through Amazon,
Yeah.
authorhouse.com, and Barnes & Noble.
Yeah.
So, and if you need to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me through my website.
Okay.
That'll be good. And go to your local libraries.
Yes.
Say, I want you to order a copy of No More Green Chili. Can you order a copy of The Crochet Lady?
Yeah.
Now, in Commerce City, all my books are there in anything.
Yeah. Nice.
Also, if you want to go to, I guess there's another library in Commerce City. I think it's part of the Ancestry thing. It's
wow.
Commerce City Library.
Okay. I haven't been to Commerce City forever.
I know. But anything...
I'm a Brightonian now.
Anything was really a really good group
Yeah.
of people.
Yeah.
Very good group of people.
Okay. I dropped out of a school across the street from him.
Wow.
Lester Arnold.
Oh, that's one more thing I wanted to say, that all the schools out there, Adams City High School, District 14, I've been an author since 2004, and I've never been asked to speak in front of children,
Yeah.
any of the students.
Yeah.
And I think I'm kind of slapped in the face with that because
Right.
I think it's the best tool that you could have.
Right.
So District 14, Adams 14,
Step your game up. What's the matter with y'all?
Adams 12, Adams 1, Brighton. They need to hear this.
Yeah.
Get some local live authors into your schools
Yeah.
to create excitement.
Or artists. Come on,
Artists,
man.
yeah, artists.
They stay sleeping on us. And we have a desire.
We
and
have
a passion.
we have starving artists in the community.
Yeah.
But now I'm in Oklahoma, and I don't know.
Well, I'm glad.
But
I'm utilizing you.
I'm gonna share some. I'm gonna share something really funny. I was with a group of guys over in Durant,
Yeah.
Oklahoma, and down there, that was one of the hardest things was getting used to the language, because the languages, they have a real Southern drawl.
Yeah.
It's like walking into Gomer Pyle or listening to Gomer Pyle or any of those people, but sometimes thicker.
Yeah.
And I was talking to two gentlemen, and I asked one guy, "Where you from?" He goes, "I'm from Anus."
Excuse me, say that again?
Yeah, and so I looked at him and I said, "Anus."
Yeah.
And the other guy next to him says, "Oh, he's just jacking with you. He's from Enos."
Oh, okay.
Enos.
Yeah.
Enos. So we were just rolling
Yeah.
and rolling, and just, the language is like, will blow you apart. And
Yeah.
the attire, a lot of men there like to wear the coveralls.
Yeah.
They like to wear the coveralls. But I'm just telling you about certain areas.
Right. Right.
Because most of Oklahoma, people don't talk like that.
Yeah.
It's like Denver. Everybody's transplanting.
Yes.
Everybody's getting out of the big cities.
Right.
And they're getting into smaller cities. But now Denver's not a small city anymore.
No, we're growing, man.
It's too big.
Yeah, we went to.
I'm suffocated already.
Yeah, we went to North Carolina last year, and we went to Bojangles. It's a chicken chain they have out there, kind of like a KFC. And she asked me if I wanted any sides, but she was like, "You want any size?" And I was like, "Yeah, large." She's like, "No, you want any size?" And I was like, "Well, what sizes do you have?" And she was like, "No, do you want any size?" And so the manager had to get on the intercom and said, "Sir, do you want any side dishes with your meal?" And I was like, "Oh, sides with the D. I'm sorry. I thought you
Mashed
asked me."
potatoes and gravy, collard green.
I said, "Yes, in fact, I do. Give me the mac and cheese."
No, these are beautiful people down there. We're making fun. And
No, yeah, I'm not trying
there's
to
so much diversity in terms of
Yeah.
language in the United States. And,
right.
And one of the things that I was saying, like the word tournament.
Yeah.
Now on the East Coast they say tournament.
Tournament.
In Colorado we say tournament.
Right.
In the South they say tournament.
And it's not to belittle anybody. It's funny when you go to, it's a culture shock. You go to these different, places around the country, and it's such different. And I've even heard that somebody asked me if I had an accent. And I
Hanging
was
around with all those vatos.
yeah, I was like, nah, bro, I'm from Colorado. He's like, "Oh, you have an accent." No, but man, Mr. Q, I'm so grateful that you came and blessed our platform and our podcast. I encourage the listeners out there to go get his books. I have them. I haven't read them. I'm just gonna be honest. I'm slacking.
Lord.
I'm not a big reader, man. I got to step my game up. I had another author on a few episodes ago. She gave me a book. I still haven't read it, so don't feel bad, okay?
Okay.
But shout out to the unsung heroes within communities that don't get awards, that don't get applause, that don't get recognized. It's people like you that make communities go round. It's people like you that plant seeds of hope into children who are looking for something to follow, looking for something to achieve in life, and they come across ambitious men like yourself, loving men like yourself, caring men like yourself, and Brother Rick here. Brother Rick, right? Okay, I'm terrible with names. And you guys are seed planners, man. You're hope planners.
Life givers.
You're life givers.
Not life takers.
Not takers. You're
Yeah.
giving back to your community.
I heard that today in today's message.
Today's sermon.
Yeah.
Amen. And I applaud you guys. And as someone who is giving their life and as someone who has been in your shoes now, right? I'm in your shoes now trying to give back to my community. And it's amazing how the doors just close on you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I'm trying to give myself, man, why aren't the doors opening? It's a weird thing, actually. I don't. Can you speak to that? Why do you think that is? We're men who try to make a difference, a positive difference. We get doors closed on our
I think
face.
it has a lot to do with back to the survival thing. People are so busy with their jobs and trying to make that money.
Yeah.
And people misusing their money.
Right.
You know, instead of going home and enjoying your kids,
Right.
go to the bar and share about what? Mm-hmm. Save that extra money so you could buy a round of beers for your bros.
Right.
That's not good.
Distractions. Yeah. No, but I thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for all your work, your life's work. I'm going to carry on your legacy. None of your work is in vain. It has inspired young men like myself. And so I salute you. I salute the unsung hero. God bless you guys. Okay. And again, Mr. Q, thank you for joining the podcast today.
All right.
Cool. Thanks.
Thanks for inviting me, bro.
Yeah. Hey, anytime.
Broham.
Broseph. Guys, I hope you were blessed with today's episode. And I hope Mr. Q's testimony has blessed you. And please go support his books, man. And go follow him on Facebook. He's full of inspiration and he's full of compassion and love. And so,
The website,
QuintanaReads.com. That's QuintanaReads.com. Make sure you go support it. God bless you guys. Thank you. This has been Gatekeepers. We are signing out.